At 0800 hours in the narrow throat of the Strait of Hormuz, a violent flash tears across the jagged cliffs of Keshem Island as 6 Nord cruise missiles ignite and race toward the USS Eisenhower at blistering speed. Inside the carrier's Combat Information Center, every screen lights up in urgent red. American early warning systems flare as Iran launches a massive anti-ship barrage aimed at sending 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered prestige beneath the waves. Tehran believes it has set in motion the strike of the century, an attack meant to cripple the American fleet and spark a global crisis before the first wreckage even hits the water. 5,000 sailors appear to have just 90 seconds left. But as the Aegis combat system comes alive and the world seems to freeze, something deeply unsettling begins to appear on the scopes. Why are the missiles moving as if they have encountered something impossible? Is the Eisenhower truly exposed, or has the IRGC stepped into a digital trap no military manual has ever described? Stay with this story, because in this deadly game of high-stakes strategy, the real danger has not even revealed itself yet. At exactly 0805 hours, the tactical picture in the Strait of Hormuz shifts from a tense standoff to something closer to a digital mirage. To understand how it reached this point, you have to see Iran's desperate calculation. Pressured into a geopolitical corner by Trump's massive naval buildup, Tehran turns to Russian-designed technology to prove that in the narrow waters of the strait, even the U.S. Navy can become vulnerable. Iran deploys Russian-made Avtabaza mobile jammers alongside Nord cruise missiles in an attempt at a strategic knockout, betting that overwhelming numbers and electronic disruption can blur America's battlefield advantage. The IRGC is not simply launching missiles. It is trying to bend the entire battlespace to its will. Using mobile jamming units, Iranian forces saturate the air with powerful electronic noise, creating as many as 5,000 ghost tracks across American radar screens. What should look like 6 incoming threats suddenly becomes a storm of thousands of hostile icons moving at high speed. It is the ultimate electronic labyrinth, a billion-dollar illusion built to push the U.S. Navy into wasting precious interceptors on phantoms while the real threat slips through the static. Yet the Eisenhower Strike Group stays unnervingly composed. Its commander understands one hard truth. In a battle shaped by algorithms and deception, panic can destroy a fleet faster than any missile. So instead of reacting with chaos, the USS gravely answers with a lesson in electronic misdirection. A swarm of Nulka-active decoys lifts into the air, hovering like electronic luces. These systems do more than jam incoming threats. They project radar signatures so large and convincing that they appear even more attractive than the carrier itself. Imagine standing in a completely dark room with a single candle, only for someone beside you to switch on a blinding floodlight. The Iranian Nor seekers, overwhelmed by that false signal, veer away from the Eisenhower and pursue phantom targets into open water. From the cliffs, Iranian commanders believe the plan is working. On their displays, the symbols seem to be closing in on the American formation. What they do not realize is that they are chasing an illusion. It is a billion-dollar trap built from pure misdirection, and Tehran has already stepped straight into it. But as the Nulka decoys pull the first wave out into empty sea, the IRGC shifts to something far more direct. Realizing their radar-guided weapons are being outplayed, they deploy dozens of fast Zulfiqar boats. This is no longer only a contest of electronic warfare. Using visual targeting to support a second wave of missiles, these boats attempt to bypass the American defensive screen altogether. In an instant, the digital maze becomes a physical trap, and the room to maneuver starts to disappear. If you were in command of the Gravely, would you spend your remaining interceptors on uncertain targets, or hold fire until the threat is close enough to see clearly? Share your thoughts below, because the American response is about to shift from silent precision to open force in less than a minute. At 0815 hours, the U.S. Navy moves from passive defense to high-speed action. To break up Iran's second wave, the American Combat Network identifies the most vulnerable point in the chain, the fast Zulfiqar boats serving as the strike group's forward eyes. 2F/A-18E Super Hornets thunder off the Eisenhower's deck and reach combat speed within seconds. These aircraft are not just fighters. They are precision instruments built to dismantle a threat piece by piece. Using APG-79 AESA radars and Link 16 data sharing, the pilots begin methodically tearing apart the Iranian spotting network. The result is swift and overwhelming. The fast boats, designed for speed but offering little protection, are shredded by accurate fire and 20mm Vulcan bursts. The Super Hornets do more than destroy the vessels. They cut off the missile crews on the cliffs from the visual guidance they were counting on, stripping the strike package of its eyes at the very moment it needs them most. It is the kind of battlefield dominance that turns a dangerous attack into a collapsing chain of failures before the decisive blow can ever land. In the brutal logic of modern naval warfare, one lesson has just become impossible to ignore. Speed means very little when every move is being watched by a battlefield network built to see everything. But Tehran's desperation is now reaching its breaking point. As its spotting network collapses, Iran unleashes its most dangerous salvo yet. 12 Nor missiles surge forward in coordinated formation. These low-flying attackers skim just a few feet above the waves, cutting through the whitecaps of the Strait of Hormuz and blending into the chaos of the sea itself. They use the curvature of the earth and the clutter of the water as natural cover, slipping beneath the detection window of the American destroyers. In seconds, the tactical picture turns critical. These 12 missiles are no longer chasing false targets. They have a real lock and are racing straight toward the Eisenhower. The range collapses to just 5 miles, leaving less than half a minute before possible impact. The FA-18S are still too high to react in time, the escort ships are pushed to their limits, and the entire strike group suddenly finds itself staring at a nightmare scenario. The electronic shield is no longer dealing with ghosts on a screen. It is facing a wall of steel flying just above the waterline, and the margin for error has almost disappeared. Can the Super Hornets drop fast enough to stop the wave skimmers, or is the Eisenhower about to face its first direct strike? Share your thoughts below because the final layer of the American defense is about to be tested in a way no one saw coming. At 0830 hours, the Strait of Hormuz seems moments away from becoming the setting for a devastating blow to American naval prestige. Despite the earlier Super Hornet attack, one Iranian Noor missile, a 13-foot threat driven by Russian-built systems, and Tehran's final gamble, has done the unthinkable. It slips beneath the Aegis radar horizon, threads past the outer defensive screen, and now tears toward the starboard side of the USS Eisenhower. This is the scenario planners in Washington have feared for decades. The saturation attack has broken through, and one of the most powerful warships on Earth is now facing a direct test at close range. Inside the Eisenhower's Combat Information Center, the silence feels heavier than any alarm. Sailors wait for the last line of defense to answer, the Mark 15 Phalanx CIWS. This radar-guided Gatling system, capable of firing 4,500 rounds per minute, is the fleet's final shield when every other layer has failed. But as the Noor missile closes to within 1,000 yards, something chilling happens. The Phalanx remains still. Its barrels do not move. Tehran's Russian-trained electronic warfare teams have achieved something few believed possible. A powerful surge of electromagnetic interference floods the local fire control sensors of the CIWS, forcing the system into a critical hardware lock. At the exact fraction of a second when the weapon needs to fire, the American defense network is smothered in digital noise. It is a moment of pure tactical shock. The giant appears blinded, stripped of its final shield, and exposed in the center of an electronic storm. Brace for impact. Brace. Brace. The command tears through the ship's internal communications. For sailors on deck, it sounds like a final warning. Through the mist, they can see the orange burn of the missile's exhaust cutting across the water, a high-speed threat now only 500 feet from the hull. The air is heavy with ozone, smoke, and the feeling that history is about to change. To anyone watching, the U.S. Navy seems moments from losing its crown jewel. In this brutal contest of strategy, it looks as if every card has finally been played. The clock has hit zero, and the world stands one heartbeat away from open conflict. If you think the U.S. Navy still finds a way through, comment 1 below. At exactly 0835 hours, just 2 seconds before disaster becomes global crisis, the USS Gravely makes a move that seems to defy both physics and the limits of steel. The destroyer throws itself into a violent, bone-rattling turn, placing its own hull between the incoming Noor missile and the Eisenhower. It is the bodyguard's answer, a maneuver so aggressive it nearly rolls the escort ship onto its side. Then the Gravely's rolling airframe missile system erupts to life in conditions many experts would call impossible at this distance. A flash, a shockwave. The Iranian missile is torn apart into fire and fragments barely 200 feet from the carrier. The blast shakes windows aboard the Eisenhower, while burning debris scatters across the flight deck. But the hull holds. The giant survives by the narrowest margin imaginable. Yet the relief is short-lived. The American escort screen is nearly spent. Gravely and the surrounding warships have used almost every interceptor in their launch cells to break the saturation assault. And Tehran knows it. Deep inside the jagged caves of Qasem Island, Iranian crews are already preparing reserve launchers for one final strike designed to overwhelm what remains. The shield is cracked, the defenders are running low, and the world waits in silence as the IRGC prepares to throw one last punch at a giant that may have no shields left at all. Do you think the USS Gravely's sacrifice was worth it if the fleet now stands nearly exposed? Or did the US Navy simply buy a little more time? Share your thoughts below, because the Eisenhower is about to make a move that changes the language of deterrence completely. 8:45 hours. The Strait of Hormuz has become a 21st century coliseum, where the global energy lifeline is the prize and a nuclear-powered supercarrier is the target. But instead of withdrawing into the safer waters of the Arabian Sea, the USS Eisenhower does something no one expects. It comes to a full stop in the center of the narrow passage. It is a silent show of strength. Across the strike group, every ship shifts to full active posture. Spy 6 and Spy 1 radars surge online, flooding the region with a wall of electromagnetic energy. It is a message broadcast across the Gulf without a single spoken word. We are still here, we still see everything, and we are waiting for your next move. To military observers, the gesture is chilling in its calmness. Like a gunfighter resting a hand near the holster and meeting an opponent's stare in the middle of an empty street, the Eisenhower is projecting confidence under pressure. Inside Iranian command bunkers, confidence mixes with urgency. They interpret the carrier as a wounded giant, low on interceptors, and trapped with little room to maneuver. Believing they have a historic chance to embarrass their greatest rival, the IRGC prepares its final all-in strike. Remaining launches on Keshim Island are brought to ready status. Large missile salvos are readied for an overwhelming attack meant to turn the strait into chaos. It is a dangerous standoff where one wrong move could shake the entire region. Tehran believes it controls the pace of events. Convinced the American giant is weakening behind its electronic mask, commanders prepare to force the next move. But in this 100,000-ton game of pressure and timing, who really holds the final card? Has the U.S. Navy saved one last move, or has Tehran truly cornered the king? Drop your prediction below, because the final twist is about to come from beneath the surface, 0900 hours. As Iranian commanders move to authorize what they believe will be checkmate, the night takes an unexpected turn. Instead of engines roaring to life, command screens suddenly go dark. In place of targeting data, a single white word appears on the black displays: goodbye. What began as a display of missile power ends in silence and confusion. While this story is a fictionalized simulation of how a modern conflict could unfold, the broader themes are real. Networked warfare, layered defense, electronic disruption, and the speed of decision-making now define naval power in the 21st century. Hit like and subscribe to Navy Vector so you don't miss the next high-stakes briefing from the front line of maritime strategy. The sensors are active. The board is set. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next deck.